The Miami Hurricanes had their media day today, so all of the players spoke to the reporters. Head coach Jim Larrañaga had a press conference, as well as Director of Athletics Dan Radakovich, who said ticket sales are up from last season, obviously with the Final Four campaign. A lot of excitement for this team. They're ranked number 13 in the preseason AP Top 25 poll, which matches the highest they've been ranked in the Top 25. So that's great. A lot of excitement with this team. You know, Jim Larrañaga had a lot of things to say about the team, but there was something he did not say, which I think is actually really important with this team that I want to get to in a little bit. But basically, I want to start with what the players had to say. You know, it was great being able to talk to a bunch of different guys, whether it was the returners, had some good conversation with Nigel Pack and Norchad Omier in different situations, and also Wooga Poplar. Those were the three main guys I spoke to today in terms of the returners, but also Christian Watson, as well as the new guys. You know, I think it's really exciting to see how the new guys are going to fit in, particularly with Kesean George, but also Paul Jobé, and then Mike Nwako, who I think is going to play some minutes too, you know, playing in that backup 5 role. And I'll get into some more with stuff with them, but let's start with Nigel Pack. Watching him, you know, I've said this a number of times, it's a lot of fun watching him shoot, you know, just in drills. It's not even necessarily what he does in the games, but in practice drills, whether it's shoot around drills, or just like today, he got some shots up before practice actually started, which I did see a little bit of practice today. I'll get into that as well. But just watching Nigel, it's just very effortless with him. You know, he's got a great form. You know, he shoots threes. You know, just the way he shoots a three, it looks like a free throw for most guys in terms of his range. And then I saw something too, which I asked him about. He stepped back behind the line of the 3-point line quite a few feet, which actually I saw, you know, his back feet were actually in the logo, the midcourt, the U logo there, working on some shots and making threes from there. I asked him about that distance, if that's been something new, and he talked a little bit about that he definitely wants to work on his distance and shoot from range this year, and it will help him, you know, either get off shots inside the arc or maybe even at 3-point range, but really it really puts a lot of pressure on the defense. And also, he said too, you know, if he makes some or proves that he's a threat that far out, it can help his teammates as well. You know, and I think that'll be something to watch for. It's something fun to watch. And certainly if you've seen the reports and if you're curious about the secret scrimmage, they did have a game against Florida, which they lost. And the reason why you're not seeing a lot of details about that is because the NCAA actually prevents teams from, you know, publicizing it, speaking about it, inviting reporters to this event. This isn't a situation where, oh, they have a scrimmage, let's find out what happened, particularly like football, you know, where, you know, they have these scrimmages where we find out information. With the NCAA managing how the information comes out, typically you don't hear very much, but certainly if you've seen the reports, yeah, Nigel Pack, 27 points, they lose by 2 to Florida. Nigel had a good performance there. I think Nigel's in for a good season once again. And kind of going back to his 3-point shooting and things he does in drills, I asked him about the 5-minute drill, the 5-minute shooting drill that the players do at the beginning of practices. You know, what's the most he's ever made? And he said high 70s is about the mark, which is really impressive. So what they'll do is for 1 minute at each of the 5 main spots behind the arc, they'll shoot threes in successive pattern. When the time runs out, they take a quick little, feels like 5-10 second break, and then they go to the next spot and the clock goes, and then they add up their totals. And he said high 70s, somewhere that's kind of his high mark, but his goal really is he wants to get 20, he wants to make 20, and he wants to in one spot in a minute, which is really hard to do. I would just challenge anybody that you know has a basketball rim nearby and wants to put up some shots. But yeah, he's got a guy throwing him passes, but basically everything's got to be flush, and he's definitely working on that too. You know, good shooters aren't just happy about making the shot. They want it to go flush. They want it to essentially be perfect. So that's what he said. And also too, he wants to go through a round where he doesn't miss a shot. And just watching him, that wouldn't surprise me because, you know, I've seen him make nearly all of his shots, maybe miss a couple in a round. So just a really good shooter, and he's definitely fun to watch. You know, and I talked to Nigel about Wooga because everybody's, you know, excited about Wooga. And you know, if you've seen the article I wrote and my vote for ACC Breakout Player of the Year, I picked Wooga, not just from Miami, but in the conference. There's other good conference guys, you know, I definitely think you should pay attention to. But I think Wooga is going to be the breakout player in the conference. And one of the things I asked Nigel was, I find it interesting because Miami's got 3 other guys on the team who have led their college teams in scoring, with Nigel at K-State, Norchad at Arkansas State, and then Matthew Cleveland at Florida State. So these guys are all veterans. They know what it's like to lead a team in scoring. And I asked Nigel if it's, you know, if they had to essentially kind of bring Wooga up or essentially, you know, get him into that role, because last year he was 5th on the team in scoring. They're expecting him to be a high scorer. And the one thing he said about just getting Wooga more involved in, and the reason why he thinks he could be a high-level scorer is because of the work he puts in. And if you remember back in his freshman year, I was posting videos of Wooga after games, coming back out on the Watsco court, putting up more shots, and that work ethic has continued. He gets in early, puts up shots, he stays late. You know, he definitely is a guy that's a workhorse, and a guy like Nigel mentioned that being a big point for this team in terms of, Wooga's role. They definitely want him to shoot shots, and definitely know that he's going to be a key for this team. So, and he also said, sometimes with that individual accolades, you think winning is such a big deal, and this team has that proven success, what they had last year with all the wins that they had and all the success that they had, that individual accolades aren't the main priority for this team. And I believe him. I think sometimes you hear players say that and you're not sure which way it really goes, but I don't think that will be the case, and I think that's also the program that Jim Larrañaga wants to have, has had since he's been here at Miami, certainly. One of the things Jim Larrañaga said is, he feels like, when I mentioned this before, but he feels like defensively they're not exactly with where they want to be. To me, that's exactly what I hear pretty much every year at this time with Larrañaga, and he knows that they've got to be better, and this is something that stood out to me, and this is what I want to lead into. He said to get where they want to be, they've got to be a better defensive team. I was able to watch only 5 minutes of practice today. They didn't have it wasn't a very long period that they had open, but I had to go to football press conference, then run back to just catch the end of basketball, but I was able to catch a few things. NBA scouts were in attendance, which is good to see. But coach stopped practice and really urged the players, and I listened to what he had to say to the team, was during a drill. It's a fast break drill, but basically said, we've got to put a lot of effort. It's got to be a lot of running. You've got to be able to do certain things at a high level. Again, saying the message to get to where they want to be. And hearing that message from him, and then talking to a lot of players. They're talking about not just Final Four with what they did last year, but they're talking national championship. I've never heard a Miami basketball team talk about national championship, and not to say that they haven't thought about it or think it could be a reality, but this is actually in their thoughts. So they've got high expectations. Again, number 13 team in the country, but certainly they feel like they've got a really good team, and if they do all these things right, they feel like they've got the pieces in place to have another really successful season, and they've had 2 deep tournament runs the last 2 years, so they certainly feel like they can duplicate that or go further, which is certainly their goal. Norchad Omier did say defensively, asked him what he thinks about the defense, and he's like, yeah, we've got to be a little bit better, but he does feel like, he doesn't want to compare teams, but he does feel like this team can be a good defensive team, feels like they can create turnovers, and so it's going to be a little bit different of defensive team, but he does like the height of this team, which he feels like can really be a good factor. He's working with Nwako quite a bit, and feels like he's challenged him quite a bit in practices, both ways. Offensively and defensively, these guys really going at it, so that's a good matchup. It's fun to watch. I've seen times where Norchad has the edge over Mike, and then, Mike turns it around and gets things going either offensively, gets aggressive defensively, either blocking shots or getting rebounds or knocking down shots, and so it's a good challenge, and I think Mike is going to certainly play a big role, a key role. The staff knows he's got to play a role for this one. Okay. So this is what Jim Larrañaga did not talk about during his press conference. He wasn't asked. There was one question about the freshmen. How are they doing? The answer was, they're freshmen, kind of a thing. But look, I'm here to tell you, I think Kesean George is going to be an exciting player for Miami as a freshman. I have high hopes for him. I think he's going to be big time. I think you, the fans, are going to really enjoy watching him play. I think he has a really high potential, a very bright future for the Hurricanes. He's going to be an exciting player to watch from day one, certainly starting with the exhibition game. I don't think he's been talked about nearly enough, and I think there's a reason for that, but also I think it's not going to take long for everyone to realize, oh, this guy's the real deal. I did ask the players kind of on one-on-one situations, hey, what do you think of Kesean? Kind of asking them, and a lot of guys, returners, freshmen, the freshmen know he's a little bit different. Being that 6'9", even heard 6'10", they think maybe he's a 6'10" point guard. And when I hear point guard, it's one thing to hear it, but I've seen it. I've seen him play point guard, run point here in scrimmages, and you've heard me speak highly about him. But again, the court vision, had a chance to talk with Kesean. He said, playing with the guys he played with in Europe has certainly helped. But the vision and basketball and his court IQ, he gets a lot of credit for that. A lot of people praise him for that. And he said he's been a basketball guy his whole career. Ever since he was young, basketball was his only sport. So he really credits that. He's watched a lot of games. Obviously, we know about his dad playing basketball too. So I think a lot of this has really helped. But again, offensively, he can shoot the ball. He can handle it. I like the way he passes. He's going to be a really exciting player. And I know Jim Larrañaga spoke about Wooga Poplar. It feels like he's got 2 years of eligibility left. Doesn't know if he'll last past this one. But I'm telling you, I don't think Kesean George is going to be on campus very long, because I think he just has a really bright future, and I don't think it's going to take very long for people to see it. Certainly he's got to get better. He's got to get better defensively, add some strength, talk to an assistant coach about that, so they certainly know physically he's got to get a little bit stronger. But again, I think he's got a really bright future, and I don't think it's going to be down the road. I think he's going to play a big factor this season. And and I asked kind of the veterans about that importance of Kesean to this team, with where they want to go, the importance of him being a scorer off the bench, a guy that can play the 1, 2, or 3, knock down shots. He's just a mismatch problem. And I asked Kesean about some players that he likes to watch in the NBA, and Shea was one of the guys that he mentioned. I thought that was certainly an interesting player, interesting comp. Shea does so much for the Thunder in terms of his ball handling ability. I remember watching almost all of his games his freshman year at Kentucky, seeing the progression of Shea, of what he was in the preseason, kind of how he eventually got minutes and moved into that lead role for the Wildcats. And I'm not saying this is exactly going to happen. I'm telling you, I know that the fans are going to really want to see him more minutes. So we'll see how his minutes shake out, but certainly handling the second unit at this time, I think he's in for a great season. There's no doubt about it. So that's going to wrap it up for me. Media day. Again, I wish I could have seen more of practice. I've been trying to get more time to be able to see these guys. So hopefully I'll be able to see more. I don't know if it'll be the rest of this week. They do have ACC Media Day on Wednesday in North Carolina, so definitely stay tuned for that. I'll have plenty of content on the site, video interviews. I'll have a notebook, some more stuff that I'll add to that in terms of all the other interviews, but also I'll be posting videos so you can see the guys say some things for yourself. So thanks for watching. Definitely drop in the comments. Plenty of content coming this week. Again, regular season starts November 6th, but that one exhibition game I think will be important too. I'll have more on that as the week comes on. But thanks for watching. I'm glad you guys are excited about hoops. I definitely am as well. Have a good rest of the day and take care.